Hello all, welcome to the Chicago Justice Show. I'm your host, Tracy Siska. I'm also Executive Director of the Chicago Justice Project. Find out everything about our transparency and accountability work and our reports that we've published recently at chicagojustice.org. Keep an eye on that website, 9 a.m. Tuesday morning for our latest. It's a great, among other things, it's about the Freedom of Information Act, but it's also about grading the Office of Emergency Management and Communications, the Chicago Police Department. OEMC is the 911 Center. Police Department, Chicago Police Department. Cook County State's Attorney's Office. Cook County Sheriff. Illinois Department of Corrections. Illinois State Police. The Chicago Police Board. Citizens Office of Police Accountability. We have sent the same FOIA request to all of those agencies, and we're going to grade out their responses. It's amazing what you can hear from these agencies in response to a document. The Freedom of Information Act itself, the legislation, mandates that they maintain. You're not going to believe a few of the responses. It's truly amazing. It's so Chicago. Okay, on our show today, our main segment is on the flexibility of ShotSpotter scientific results. If you're asking yourself, how do scientific results have flexibility? Yes, that is the question, but we're going to show you how. Vice documented it for us. Then we're going to talk about CPD still using their defunct gang affiliation data. We're going to talk about CWB on the demotion of Jake Alderden, the, I believe, 18th District Commander, if I'm not mistaken. Then we're going to talk about Joliet Police Department and basically their promotion of a sergeant who should not have been promoted, not been promoted, but still should not have been a police officer. Should have been fired a long time ago, but it's a perfect example of why these departments keep ticking time bombs on their staff. It's really mind-boggling. If we get into it later on, we have a few national stories to talk about. Also, before we get to the main segment, once again, we're dropping that FOIA report Tuesday at 9 a.m. Also, we have coming up on the 12th. Yes, it is the 12th. I always get the date wrong. We have our day of action. We're going to tweet storm a single criminal justice agency, and their leader is basically pushing them to honor the Freedom of Information Act and live up to their responsibilities, obligations, and the law. I know that's amazing for a criminal justice agency to do. We're announcing the target, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday. Pay attention to our social media, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter, where you're watching this, but also Instagram, TikTok, and we'll be announcing the day of action target. You can get info at chicagojustice.org if you are interested in getting involved. Also at Chicago Justice, you can get that information at cjpnation.org. That's our activist site. You can also, when you're there, sign up to become a social media ambassador for CJP. You can also join crowdsourced research projects. You can do some fundraising for CJP if you so wish. We have a bunch of projects going on. You can find out all about it at cjpnation.org. Donate if you want. There's a donate there. You can also sponsor this show, our last pitch. Go to chicagojustice.org or drop a comment, your email in the comments right now at any of the platforms you're watching this, or hit us up at info@chicagojustice.org, and we will custom design a sponsorship program for you, sponsor this show, and expand our ability to stream beyond just the 3 times a week, but we board Illinois General Assembly, anything that they do on crime and justice issues, we want to be able to stream it. All right. Now that I got all of that out of the way, our first segment tonight is a story out of Vice News, about ShotSpotter, that technology that's supposed to almost instantaneously notify police of a gunshot, and I think through triangulation tell them exactly where it happened. Now, this technology is amazingly iffy. There's a story on Vice. The title of the story is "Police are telling ShotSpotter to alter evidence from gunshot detecting AI." Artificial intelligence there. gets right. Police are telling them to change their stories, and they're changing them. It is really a fascinating thing. ShotSpotter is highly controversial. Does it work? Sometimes. Does it give a lot of, as far as we know, does it seem like it gives a lot of false positives, like things that sound like fire that are that ShotSpotter registers as gunshots? Are they really? And it's expensive. Chicago is the largest police department in the country, or has the largest contract. It's like $33 million a year, or $33 million for a couple of years. It's really ridiculous. A bunch of cities have dropped it because it literally just doesn't do what it says it's going to do, and it gives too many false negatives. False positives. So Vice here on ShotSpotter identifies a couple instances where the police departments have contacted ShotSpotter about the returns that they get through their software, through the technology, and say, oh, can you do something about that? And we're going to dig into that. It's really astounding. This in itself should be enough for them to cancel the contract. The contract's coming up, and there's activists in Chicago trying to get them to not renew it. It's really scary. Okay, let's look at the article. On May 31st last year, 24-year-old Safaran Herring was shot in the head and dropped off at St. Bernard Hospital in Chicago by a man named Michael Williams. He died 2 days later. Chicago police eventually arrested the 64-year-old Williams and charged him with murder. Williams maintains that Herring was hit in a drive-by shooting. A piece of evidence in the case is video surveillance footage showing Williams' car stopped on the 6300 block of South Stony Island Avenue at 11:45 p.m. The time and location where police say they know Herring was shot. Okay, but all right, so you know the shot happened there, but do you know who did it? But then again, just because the police say they know something, do they? How do they know? Here we go. That night, 19 ShotSpotter sensors detected percussive sound at 11:46 p.m. and determined the location was to be 5700 South Lakeshore Drive. Not the same location the cops say they know where the shot took place. A mile away from the site where prosecutors say Williams committed the murder. According to a motion filed by Williams' public defender, can you believe everything a public defender puts down? You can't believe anything, about anyone, right? Prove it. The company's algorithms initially classified the sound as fireworks. That weekend had seen widespread protests in Chicago in response to George Floyd. Obviously, this is in 2020. George Floyd's murder, and some of those protesting used fireworks. Okay, well, if the technology said fireworks, how are the cops saying it's a shooting? Right? How do they know? But after the 11:46 p.m. alert came in, a ShotSpotter analyst manually overrode the algorithm and reclassified the sound as a gunshot. Then, months later, and after post-processing, another ShotSpotter analyst changed the alert's coordinates to a location on South Stony Island Drive, near where Williams' car was seen on camera. Yep. Who believes the override? Who believes it? Either the technology works or it doesn't. There shouldn't be any human intervention right? Why is the human telling the technology where the thing happened instead of the technology telling the human where it happened? Why do we have the technology if humans are just going to conjure shit up? The public defender filed a Fry motion, a request for a judge to examine and rule on whether a particular forensic method is scientifically valid enough to be entered into as evidence. Rather than defend ShotSpotter's technology and its employees' actions in the Fry hearing, the prosecutors withdrew all ShotSpotter evidence against Williams. Ding, 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 here we go. They wouldn't defend it. Now, this is not uncommon across the country, ladies and gentlemen. It seems like it's not uncommon for the police to call ShotSpotter and say, we need your results to say something. Can you please change them? But also, this is a common problem with police departments using all these new technologies that haven't been validated. Right? If you look at most forensic evidence in this country, and it's starting to get more and more and more robust in the oversight, most forensic technology has been independently validated. The only one that I know of, outside of like ShotSpotter here, that hasn't been, are fingerprints. I know this is going to blow your mind. You can look on Frontline for or on the internet for there was also a report from a commission on this, headed up by a federal judge. There's no scientific evidence that any single individual's fingerprints are different than another. There's none. They may have done the studies in the last couple of years, but there wasn't as of a couple of years ago. There's no scientific evidence that a human being can distinguish one fingerprint from another. There's no scientific evidence that a computer can do that. At least there wasn't a couple of years ago. None. Fingerprints came in from Old England, came over with them, and it was just accepted into court. If fingerprints, and it's starting to get backlash, it's starting to happen across the country where judges are like, wait a minute, let's not necessarily automatically trust this. How has it been independently validated? If fingerprints would have to be introduced as new technology now, at least as of a couple years ago, judges wouldn't allow it in at all because there's no independent evidence showing it worked, showing that humans have even different fingerprints. Now, my problem with this, one of the problems that's not really mentioned in the article, but I have this issue, is that, Kim Foxx does a lot of progressive things. But here her office failed. If she's going to be a check on the police like she says she wants to be, right? Like she says she wants to be, she should be, her office should be, allowing that Fry hearing to take place. Let's crack it open. Let's make sure it works. We're for justice. We want to make sure it works. They didn't. And them not doing it, them closing the books like they have, this is old school cooperation between the prosecutors and the cops. This is wrong. And if Fox really wants to take her office's independence to the next level, she should allow them and call for the cracking open of ShotSpotter technology, or at least to multiple independently driven experiments to see if the technology actually works as high as ShotSpotter claims it does. Back to the other. Motherboard's review of court documents from the Williams case and other trials in Chicago and New York State. I think Motherboard's another publication that originally did this. Include testimony from ShotSpotter favored expert witness suggests that the company analysts frequently modify alerts at the request of police departments, some of which appear to be grasping for evidence that supports the narrative of events. This thing that happened in Chicago is just not unique to Chicago. The article continues. This is a little bit of a chunk, but it's worth it. In 2016, Rochester, New York, police looking for a suspicious vehicle stopped the wrong car and shot the passenger, Sylvan Simons, in the back 3 times. They charged him with firing first at officers. The only evidence against Simmons came from ShotSpotter. Initially, the company's sensors did not detect any gunshots, and the algorithm ruled that the sounds came from helicopter rotors. After Rochester police contacted ShotSpotter, analysts ruled that there had been 4 gunshots. The number of times police fired at Simons, missing once. Uh-oh. That doesn't make sense. That didn't help the police. But I continue. Paul Green, ShotSpotter's expert witness and employee of the company, testified at Simmons' trial that subsequently he was asked by the Rochester Police Department to essentially search and see if there were more shots fired than ShotSpotter picked up, according to a civil lawsuit Simmons had filed against the city and the company. Green found a 5th shot, despite there being no physical evidence at the scene that Simmons had fired. Rochester police had also refused his multiple requests for them to test his hands and clothing for gunshot residue. Hold on. It gets worse. You wouldn't believe this happened in New York. This is so Chicago. Curiously, the ShotSpotter audio files that were the only evidence of the phantom 5th shot have disappeared. They shot the guy 3 times. They have recovered no gun, no shells, and refused to test his hands for gunpowder residue, even though they're charging him with firing at officers. Let that sink in. Once again, I go back to a couple shows ago. Officers, police officers, when you're crying about not being liked and respected by the public, it's this stuff that you do all over the country all the time that chips away at your legitimacy. How much legitimacy do I have and should people in Rochester have for the Rochester Police Department? 0. They are lying. How much respect and should you have a legitimacy for ShotSpotter, given what we've read? That's easy. None. None. Who wouldn't respect anything from this company when they're making this shit totally out of whole cloth? Let's get back to the article. Now, so just before I get back to, I was just saying, there was another, if you go in and read the story, and the link will be on our site when this gets posted to the podcast. There's another Chicago story. I'm not going to go deep into that one. But I just wanted to get the last couple paragraphs of the story here. One recent study of ShotSpotter in St. Louis found that ShotSpotter had little deterrent impact on gun-related violent crime in St. Louis. Automated gun detection systems also do not provide consistent reductions in police response time, nor aid substantially in producing actionable results. It doesn't do anything. It makes the cops feel like they are. They can tell the public they have this technology. It has no impact. Yep. I continue. And this is a little disheartening. If I knew this, I would have asked. I would have asked him about this. Hold on. Policing Project says, the Policing Project, New York, NYU, Barry Friedman, we had him on the show last summer, early on in the show. And when we first started this show and the podcast, the Policing Project, which is what Barry Friedman heads up, says ShotSpotter works in St. Louis. He pointed to a 2021 study of New York University School of Law's Policing Project that determined that assaults, which includes some gun crimes, decreased by 30% in some districts in St. Louis County if ShotSpotter was installed. The study authors disclosed that ShotSpotter had been providing the Policing Project unrestricted funding since 2018. That ShotSpotter CEO sits on the Policing Project's advisory board, and that ShotSpotter has previously compensated Policing Project researchers. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. You can believe nothing on this subject that comes out of the Policing Project. Did you know that ShotSpotter, this gunshot identifying system, reduced assaults that had nothing to do with guns or firing by 30%? Okay, well, how the hell did that happen? If I'm going to beat someone up with a bat or a knife or a pipe or a brick or run them over with my car, why do I give a shit if there's ShotSpotter technology is around that will not hear it and will not do anything and will not impact it whatsoever? Think about that. That's what the Policing Project is saying. How much bullshit is that? This is what these creepy, scumbaggy, horrific companies do. They buy academics. This is what has happened. They've been bought. They may be the most hardworking, independent, honest researchers in the world. I wouldn't trust a goddamn thing they ever produce on ShotSpotter. Never, ever, ever would I do it. Why would you? They're bought and paid for. Even if they're doing it independently, it's bought and paid for. That's why I have a hard time believing shit out of the crime lab at University of Chicago. That crappy report that Jens Ludwig did on guns for Rahm Emanuel. Right? Why? Well, the crime lab got started with millions of dollars from the city. I think the city funded Jen's work on guns specifically. No, I'm not going to believe anything you say. You get money from the mayor and you produce a report that exactly backs up his policy perspective. No, goddamn way. No. Maybe true, but I'm sure the hell not going to believe it. You're not independent enough. Just isn't. This is what these companies do. And it's not like foreign countries do the same thing. I know human rights professors, one of mine at UIC, every year would be approached by Turkey, and they would offer him boatloads of money to produce a report that the Armenian genocide wasn't a genocide. It's not uncommon. This is just the academic version of it. This is the policing justice version of it. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Okay. Second segment today. Oh, hold on. I forgot it's a video. All right. Before I play that, I want to. So, the title of this article and video is Chicago Police Defend Use of Gang Database more than 2 years after Watchdog called it deeply flawed. This original story was done by Mick Dumke at ProPublica, Illinois. And that's a specific story, but like the big revelation about how bad the gang database was, it's awful. A gang database, sorry, I'm using their words. The gang affiliation data within the CPD's data warehouses. There is not a standalone database that does it, so it's not a database. That is jargon from people who don't know what they're saying. Not surprising. The media is doing it. Activists have done it too. It's not a gang database. It is gang affiliation data in a larger database, in their clear database. It's some tables. Do they need to go? Absolutely. Is it useful? No, it's horrific. You should go. I think we had Deborah Witzberg on talking about it on our show previously. You can still get it in the archives of Facebook or YouTube to find it. It's horrific. Into it. Let's watch this 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Then we'll get into some of the text of the report that associated with it. This is from WTTW Chicago Tonight, I'm expecting. And remember, this is exhibit number 1 of why police departments, specifically the CPD, are broken.
Although it's been more than 2 years since the city's watchdog said gang records used by Chicago police were riddled with errors, the department says it's still using that same database. WTTW News reporter Heather Sharon joins us now with more. Hey, Heather. Before we talk about today's hearing, let's start with that watchdog report from 2 years ago. Inspector General Joe Ferguson conducted an audit of CPD's gang database back in 2019. Remind us, what did it find?
Well, it found that more than 135,000 Chicagoans were listed in the database, and 95% of them were Black or Latino. But that data was riddled with error, Inspector General Joseph Ferguson's found, and was ripe for abuse, especially when it comes to undocumented immigrants in Chicago, and was disproportionately targeted toward Black and Latinos. And he recommended a huge number of changes.
And so, despite relying on all of that today during a hearing before the City Council's Public Safety Committee, CPD defended continuing to use this criminal enterprise database. Why did department officials say why?
Well, they said that it's important that Chicago police know who is in a gang so they can use that information to try to stop retaliatory violence, because so many of the gang-related shootings in Chicago involve violence that starts with one shooting that leads to another, and so on and so forth. They acknowledged that the data they have is not perfect, but they said it's important to use what they have.
Particularly wanting to connect the dots in this time of high crime. But is there any hope for changes in how the CPD uses this, or even how it keeps these records?
Yes, a new database is due to be online by September, Deputy Chief Thomas Mills told Alderman. However, all of the details have yet to be worked out. It's not clear how much the database will cost, exactly who will be included in the database, and precisely how those listed in the database can appeal that ruling. All recommendations set by the Inspector General that nearly 2.5 years later, we're still waiting to figure out.
Wait and follow we will. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thanks, Amanda.
And you can read Heather
Sorry, technical issues there, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break right now, and then we'll be back with our third segment.
Join a group of engaged and committed individuals advocating for transparency and accountability in the local justice system around the country. Get engaged through crowdsourced research projects, digital activism, public policy advocacy, or become a social media ambassador. Our criminal justice system will not reform itself. Communities must demand it. Transparency can be the fuel for justice our local communities need to combat the weaponizing of data by our justice system. Transformation of our justice system cannot occur until we know exactly what they are doing and who they are doing it to. Get involved today. CJP Nation.
All right. Hopefully we got the technology worked out here. Sorry about that issue. This is an article from CWB Chicago, which isn't completely wrong. I think they missed the boat on the most important issues around this, but they're not completely wrong. It's titled, Anonymous Complaints Against Cops Are Vitally Important, Lightfoot says. Unless the cops are CPD's two highest ranking officers. What are they talking about? I think the real part of this story, as much as I seem to defend, I seem to share the resentment and distrust of the department and the fact that they demoted this district commander. I think the biggest part of the biggest part of the story is about privilege, right? Privilege. And about how obedient the mayor and the chief of police, superintendent of police here in Chicago are to a restaurant that's crying foul about youth. And I'm sure the restaurant was being honest, but I mean, of all the things going on in the city, I don't care about a single restaurant. So the story really is about some person, an officer probably, filing an anonymous complaint with the Inspector General's office about the demotion of Jake Alderden, the district commander of the 18th district, I believe. They covered the loop. Now, this is about Remington's Restaurant, 20 North Michigan Avenue. So if you want to talk about a place you should never eat again, this is one of them. Right? So let's get to the article. The anonymous complaint is completely bogus. This is Lightfoot in an email. The anonymous complaint is completely bogus, and why there has to be special care when people try to manipulate the IG system to settle their own grievances. Lightfoot fired back to the complainant just 11 minutes after they sent it to Ferguson at 7:39 p.m. 7:39 a.m. on Saturday morning, June 12th. Now, the complaint, 3 hours after filing the complaint, spoke to Jake Alderden, and he convinced them to withdraw their anonymous complaint. Now, and this is when everyone knows or people within the department know that Alderden is getting demoted. Back to the article. Neither Lightfoot's press office nor her press secretary, Cesar Rodriguez, responded to questions about the mayor's apparent intervention in the request for an investigation. We were also curious to know why the mayor believes anonymous complaints against police officers and CPD supervisors should be investigated, but an anonymous complaint against CPD's two highest ranking cops should not. What is this all about, you ask? And that is a complete hypocrisy by the mayor. She's fine for anonymous complaints. She just doesn't want anyone screwing with her or her people or the decisions. Because back in the end, I bet you this decision was from the mayor to bounce Jake. I'm sure it was. This is about the youth disrupting downtown at night and Remington's Steakhouse, or Remington's Restaurant, I think it's a steakhouse, Remington's, wanting the cops out front of his restaurant to protect it. Their restaurant, right? Now, There's some telling comments, okay? Let's look at the article and you can see the privilege that just oozes out of this. I just talked to him, Spencer replied less than 10 minutes later. I spoke with Jake Alderden as well, who agreed to put a car in front of the restaurant when the kids show up. Okay, so when the kids show up, the mayor and her people want a car in front of this restaurant, this specific restaurant. That was too brown. Here's brown. It'll take more than one car, brown text. Let's put several. Thanks. Spencer goes back. All assigned to Remingtons? The commander asked. Feel free to call the soup for clarification, but that's what it sounded like. About an hour later, Alderden told Spencer via text that Brown didn't reply to his message. Did he say how many cars he wants to stay at Remington's? Try to clarify before I return a call to the guy from Remington's that he talked to, Alderden wrote. All he said was several. Didn't give me an exact number. On the mayor's call, he mentioned it, stating how the owner's business is being drastically affected. The mayor chimed in as well. So because of a complaining restaurant owner, we have emails to the deputy chief of staff. First the mayor, then the deputy chief of staff for the mayor, chief of staff for the CPD. Another incident happens, all that rigmarole. Another incident happens with kids in the loop. Alderman gets bounced. Right? Alderman gets bounced. So you look at this, here's what should happen. Brown should be fired. The mayor's chief of staff should be fired. Brown's deputy chief of staff should be fired. So you're going to put several cars because of one restaurant complaining. Does that make any sense? What that is, ladies and gentlemen, is just flat out privilege. That's all it is. It's flat out privilege. Rich business owner, loop, do what I say. Oh yeah, the mayor's chief of staff, the superintendent's chief of staff, all responded. Alderden obviously didn't do as much as put as many cars as Brown wanted. What happened? Bing, bing, bing. He gets demoted. It is so Chicago, it's disgusting. But please, have faith in the police department. Believe in our legitimacy. We treat everyone equally. Can anyone else in the city call the police or call or email the deputy chief of staff for the mayor and get them to put a number of squad cars in front of their house or business? Disgusting. Our fourth segment today. This is like so unbelievable. So it's from Patch, which I usually don't use for the show, but I wanted to for this one because it just shows why smaller departments are so broken. Arbitrator overrules Joliet Police Board. Olson made sergeant. Okay, this is about Officer Rich Olson. And not so much that I'm hung up on him specifically, but this is a great example when you look at big departments or specifically smaller ones of why they do so many bad things in running them. They're just waiting for something really bad to come in massive lawsuit, right? This guy's a ticking time bomb. So this officer, Rich Olson, applies for promotion. The Police and Fire Board denied promotion to sergeant for him. Why? Because he had a 24-day unpaid suspension from the department in 2018. What does Olson do? He appeals to an arbitrator because our police union contracts are so broken that the Police and Fire Board of the own town doesn't have the final say. They have to go through arbitration. Okay? Arbitrator, wait, why was he suspended, you ask? Well, let's get into why he was suspended in November of 2018. Officials told Patch that Olson had completed his supposedly commit a traffic violation in the area of State and Ohio streets. The off-duty officer turned on his flashing blue and red lights, and the motorist fled. The fleeing motorist darted west, went over the Jackson Street Bridge, and accelerated up the hill with Olson giving chase. I taught in Joliet. I kind of know some of where this is. Along Bridge Street, the fleeing car came to a T intersection at Center Street and crashed into a tree. Okay. Wait for it. The driver had a female passenger inside the car. The woman remembered seeing a Joliet police officer shine a light in her direction, and then the policeman drove off. Olson did not notify police dispatchers of the wreck. He also did not notify any on-duty Joliet police officers that he was pursuing a stolen vehicle. He left that accident. He just left. Took off. Unbelievable. Wooten, the head of the Police and Fire Commission, told Joliet Patch he is confused by the arbitrator's ruling. Wooten said that Olson's versions of events for why he fled the scene of the crash and chose not to notify any on-duty police or paramedics to the wreck was not believable. Wooten said that Olson was just a couple of blocks away from a Joliet fire station, number 5. Yet he chose not to alert the paramedics that a car he was chasing just crashed into a tree. He denied Olson's promotion not only because of the severity of the charges and seriousness of the offense, we can all agree to that, but also because he was not forthcoming, Wooten told Joliet Patch's editor. Now, Olson said he was worried about the discipline coming down on him from that mean chief of police. That's what he said. That's what he said. That was his defense. See, if you back all this up, the big problem in this story is that Olson stayed a cop. They should have fired his butt immediately. Immediately. He also claimed, it's a war on cops and we're all so harshly judged, blah, 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 blah. It's unbelievable. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I'm going to talk to the police, because I'm sure I have a huge police audience. You want to know why people don't have faith in you? Why you don't have legitimacy in many, many communities throughout not only Chicago, but Illinois and the country? There's another example. This guy kept his job. He should have been out on the street, baby. He should have never had an opportunity to apply for promotion. He should have been at another job. He should not have been employed. This is why a 24-day suspension, fired. Unbelievable. Okay, we're going to get into a couple national pieces I've been trying to do on the show, but haven't had the time. We might get 2 in, we might get 1. Let's see where we're at here. This is from the National Review, and this is an article says, the only good Soros prosecutor is a defeated Soros prosecutor. Wow, the National Review. I'm shocked. This is coming from a man of incredible, unbelievable integrity, Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas. And I'm sure he hates liberals and liberal education, but he's got a JD from Harvard Law School, by the way. I love those people. Hate liberals, hate education, but I have a JD from an elite school. So let's get into the article. In recent years, radical left-wingers, many supported by billionaire George Soros, have won elected office across America. They have become district attorneys and state's attorneys in many major American cities. These so-called Soros prosecutors or progressive prosecutors have betrayed the public trust and made our communities less safe. Instead of fighting crime, they are abetting it. Wow, does this sound familiar? Now listen to that rhetoric. Think about it. Think how much that matches our police superintendent, who's supposed to be a progressive police superintendent. What kind of bullshit is that? It's the same rhetoric extremist Tom Cotton out of Arkansas, U.S. Senator, alt-right wing, is using. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same rhetoric you're hearing out of your progressive mayor, Lori Lightfoot, progressive savior mayor. Really? Your rhetoric is matching alt-right Tom Cotton, Senator Tom Cotton. When your rhetoric matches someone like Tom Cotton, you're playing for the wrong team. It's not something you should be proud of. You should be disgusted by it. Let's get back. Now, notice nowhere in here is any data or any science. None. He knows. That's why he's a Trumper. The Trump people. He knows. This is just like Lightfoot, Mayor Lightfoot, just like Brownie, Superintendent Brown, for as long as he's got his job. They don't need data either. In fact, Brown says, I don't need a study. Okay, that's wonderful, dude. Okay, let's get back to this. Soros prosecutors are refusing to charge criminals for shoplifting, vagrancy, and entire categories of misdemeanors. Okay, well, is charging them reduce crime? I just know it does. Well, okay, no one gives a shit about what you know, pulling shit out of your ass. In Chicago, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox allows theft under $1,000 to go unpunished. In Manhattan, District Attorney Cyrus Vance refused to enforce laws against prostitution. In Baltimore, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has unilaterally declared the war on drugs over and is refusing to criminally charge drug dealers and heroin addicts. In the middle of the worst drug crisis at all, hey, Mr. Cotton, does charging drug dealers or heroin addicts reduce crime? Does charging prostitutes, does it reduce crime? Just charging thefts under $1,000 reduce crime? No. That silence you heard from me is the silence you'll get from Tom Cotton. He doesn't have a goddamn clue. In the midst of everything going on, why does he give a shit about thousands under $1,000? Why doesn't he pick on something real? And listen, I know as much as these stupid business owners in Chicago, and yeah, they're pretty stupid, the ones who've been complaining about people not getting prosecuted for shoplifting, it doesn't do any good. It doesn't do any good. All it does is waste your time. It doesn't get your product back. I know, I used to be in retail. It's a data desert here. He doesn't care about science. He knows. He's a white guy. He knows. He doesn't have to worry about it. He was born with all the knowledge he needs on every subject in the world. After all, he got elected. Let's go back to the article. The malfeasance of the legal arsonists have contributed to an unprecedented surge in murder nationwide. Okay, so what you're saying is, if you prosecuted theft under $1,000 or prostitution or heroin addicts or disturbing the peace or resisting arrest or making criminal threats, murders would be lower. Now, the funny thing is, all these prosecutors got in previously to 2016, right? I mean, in the 2016 elections or later. Ladies and gentlemen, 2016 was higher than 2020 for Chicago. What the hell is he talking about? Last year, the United States suffered a 25% increase in murder, the largest single year rise in history. The murder rate has now reached the highest level since the 1990s. Soros prosecutors are not simply negligent, they are culpable in this disintegration of public safety. Indeed, the justifications or the jurisdictions have disproportionately contributed to the violent crime wave. Hey, dude, there's a worldwide pandemic going on. That doesn't seem to count. You know why? You know why it doesn't count for this scumbag, Senator? It's because his party completely mishandled it. His president, his party. And they're still doing it. I live in D.C. If you're watching this from Chicago or any major city, why are we getting more mask mandates across the country? Why? Because the idiots in the South and places like Arkansas aren't taking it seriously, aren't getting vaccinated, aren't wearing their masks. So because of them, we're forced to mask up again. If they would have got their shots, we'd all be living in heaven right now. No data, a data desert, scientific desert. This is white guy knows best. White old guy that won an election knows best. Okay, we're going to go to our last segment of the night. Oh, we are not going to go to that one. Okay. Actually, since I don't have it, I'm not going to do it. Not sure what happened there. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Something happened with the technology, but we'll get it figured out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We'll be back Monday and Wednesday of this week. And then we're off for about 10 days, 2 weeks in that range, depending. I'm going to be in Chicago for a while, and I'm going to be on vacation for some time. So we'll see. We'll have more information on that early next week about exactly how long we're going to be off. Okay, thank you so much. I will see you Monday at 5:30 Central. Hope you all have a great weekend. Stay safe.